Alright, Nigel, so we are once more done another week of Guild Quest, and with that we have another preparation guide for the upcoming week of Guild Quest, and in this case we're going to be going against the Squad Zero Human Guild Quest, where we want to be bringing melee characters, and then Phase 2 is going to begin later down the week, on Thursday in particular, where we're then going up against REAPERs, and once more we want to bring melee characters. Right from the get-go, I would like to think this is going to be one of the easier weeks for you to tackle, and it might be some of the first weeks you beat on the very hard difficulty, depending on where you are at in the current game. So we hop over to our album and have a look at some of the cards that we can bring here. Let's sort by human and of course also Squad Zero, and make it so we're only looking at melee characters. And these are the characters you can bring for this particular quest. Now looking at our entire list of options here, realistically, your best lead without a doubt is going to be Beyond Bankai Toshiro. Not only does he have Squad Zero Killer, he also does have a really high damage output to back it up. With 40% more strong attack damage, 20% more damage at full stamina, a 40% berserker, frenzy +1, and when you do inflict a status ailment, you then get the 80% SP boost. He can apply freeze, so hypothetically, the idea with this character is that you do want to apply freeze on any given boss, and if you do that, you're going to keep your team safe, and of course, you yourself are going to be safe too, where you can then just use your strong attacks and not have to worry about taking any damage, because in this case, if you do take damage, the run is kind of dead. Toshiro does want to perform at full stamina. But another great thing about Toshiro is that it doesn't end there. He does have the gauge effects. He doesn't start the quest off with 70% of the gauge full, so it's going to take you around 30-ish seconds, maybe when you get to the third boss, is when the gauge can get full, and at that point, you're then doing 100% more strong attack damage. So overall, if you want to have an easy time, Toshiro as your main lead for this upcoming melee Squad Zero Guild Quest is going to be the best thing you can do. Keep in mind though, he is potentially going to get a return later this month, potentially even when this Guild Quest is active. And we might find out about that tomorrow morning. If you don't have Toshiro, who else would be a good main? At that point, no one is nearly as good as Toshiro, but you can potentially work with some other characters. You know, in this case, Zapro, unironically, might be decent here because he can lacerate. Lacerating does stop the enemies, more so the bosses, from even using their strong attacks, which they are prone to spamming. He does have a vortex, even though it's a very short one. It might help you out. Additionally, what you can potentially do is go to a ranged character, and in this case, you could potentially bring Macy, and I'm going to try that out tomorrow. Now, of course, since Macy is a ranged character, she is barely doing any damage, but the main reason why you would want to bring her is because she does have a Tracking Vortex SA2. Not only that, she does have Squad Zero Killer, so she is getting some type of damage increase, but the SA2 in particular will be providing crowd control, really good crowd control at that, and if you do inflict a status ailment, you then also paralyze the enemies. That's going to be really good if you do need that extra crowd control. If you know you have two good side characters that are doing a lot of damage, but they just end up dying, well, having Macy as a main might be the go-to there. Especially when you do use your Soul Bomb, it applies weakened defense, that then lets your entire team do 30% more damage. It's rare for us to be able to bring characters when they don't have the correct range. In this case, again, she's a ranged character in a melee quest, but since she does have Sharpshooter, you can bring her, and she might unironically be a pretty good lead. Going back to mini characters though, the reason why I am saying this quest is going to be relatively easy, especially if you have been playing the game for a few years, even if you had for some reason the worst luck possible. If you've been doing Senko every month, you should potentially have two Tatskis being able to get max transcended. And Tatsuki was one of the main reasons why when we first got the Human Squad Zero Quincy Stammer to Guild Quest, I said it was going to be an absolute cakewalk because this character does exist. Not only is she a non-attack damage character with a boost SA2, providing you with 33% extra attack, focus, and defense, she also is technically free, right? You only have to be the Iceberg of Training Senkomon Tower. And again, if you've been playing this game for a few years now, you might have a Tatsuki max transcended. You might be like me that has just an excess amount of tickets and I can max transcend 2 Tatsukis. If she ends up dying, let's say you don't have good crowd control, she revives thanks to her last ditch. While her damage output isn't that high, it's only a flurry +1 and a 60% bruiser, it's respectable. She's the team booster, but most importantly, she is a character that you don't have access to in other guild quests, a free-to-play knight character. One that has a good damage output and is also being the team booster. So if you know you can provide good crowd control, 2 Tatskis as your side might be the go-to, and I'm actually going to do that in tomorrow's stream when we do attempt this guild quest live. And that's basically the main reason why I do think this guild quest is somewhat easy, is because it's one of the few guild quests, the only guild quest really, where you have access to a free-to-play NAD character like Tatsuki that for the most part, depending on how long you've been playing the game, you can easily max transcend. Other than that though, of course, some other good NAD characters that are also going to work well, potentially even better than Tatsuki. The first one being this Tsukishima. He does have Squad 0 Killer, he has a debuff SA2, can provide some crowd control with that SA2 as well, and he also does do more damage in guild quests. So if you have double Tatsuki, it's maybe worth throwing one out for this particular Tsukishima. He's going to be a good character to use here. Unfortunately, I do not own him. Another good NAD character might be this particular Sergeant. He does have Flurry Plus 2. He is more so designed for brave battles, but he does have a paralysis inflicting SA2 and lacerate, so if he does use that SA2, there's a good chance he might provide some good crowd control, potentially even paralyze the enemies, in which you then get around 7 or so more seconds of just free damage, right? And then, of course, another good NAD character is going to be this Stark. He's been out in the game for around 2 or so years now. I know most people don't like this character because he's always a weird one. He was a normal attack damage character that gives strong attack damage as a team buff, which is very weird, but he does work as a NAD character. And unfortunately, I mean, I guess to a certain extent, he can buff Zapro. So if you want to use Zapro as your main and have Stark in the team, Stark is actually buffing this character. I don't think it's really worth doing that, but that's something you could potentially do. So right now, I think the best team to use for this particular guild quest is going to be Toshiro, Tsukishima, and probably a booster character like Orihime, for example, just to provide the boost and also the barriers. You could replace that boost character like Orihime with someone like Tatsuki, and that will work, but the problem is you won't have really good crowd control. What's going to stop the enemies from dealing damage and killing your Tatsuki or maybe even your Tsukishima? If you are using Toshiro as a main, maybe the hope here would be to inflict freeze on any given boss. Additionally, if you're set on using Tsukishima and also Tatsuki, maybe even 2 Tatsukis, using a Macy as a main, despite her not doing the highest damage output since she is a ranged character, she will provide the crowd control with the SA2, and she will also be inflicting paralysis. Although I do want to throw this in right at the end, one character I do think is worth talking about is Gio. I kind of just skipped over him. He's also really good here. Really high normal attack damage output that gets even further increased in Guild Quest content. He's been out in the game for over a year now. You might have the character. You might have him duped out. He also does start the quest with 10 barriers, so for the first 20 seconds, that will provide some good, safety, allow him not to take any damage. So if you want to throw him in your team, maybe again alongside Tatsuki, that definitely can also work. Moving on to the melee Sniper week, this is probably going to be one of the easiest ones today. I mean, Sniper Killer is one of the more common killers in the game. There are plenty of characters here, and funny enough, actually, Toshiro once more, he's definitely going to get a rerun next week within the week of this guild quest, because you can actually use him in both weeks, the Squad 0 guild quest or the Sniper guild quest. And once more, he will again be another good lead. The same reason why you would want to use him in the Squad 0 guild quest will be the same reason why you want to use him in the Sniper guild quest. Although, of course, your cheat code for this particular week is going to be Yashiro Unohana. She can be used in the Captain Guild Quest, the Ranged Captain Guild Quest, the Ranged Sniper Guild Quest, and of course, she's also going to be really good and exceptional in the Immediate Sniper Guild Quest. She has a very similar, if not higher damage output when compared to Kyogre. And Kyogre, we did see a 1 out of 5 can comfortably be the very hard Aranka guild quest. So if you have this character worked on, T20, level 10 SP, there's a good chance you're probably going to solo the melee Sniper guild quest with just her, 1 out of 5. If you have any dupes, it gets even better. So if you have her, definitely use her as a lead here. She has an insane damage output, especially with the Rampage skill, but she also does constantly inflict weakening with that SA3 trap mechanic. Now, weakening in this mode is nerfed. It only lasts around 2 seconds because they have an 80% resistance. But even then, since you do have the trap SA3, there's a good chance you can apply weakening multiple times on any given boss. And if you have a strong attack or attack to follow up on that, you can then take full advantage of that weakening effect. Of course, other than that, I would say those are your 2 best leads. But once more, you have just many other options. 8th Anniversary White's also going to be good here. Not nearly as good as Yachiru, since he just has a significantly higher damage output. But in his case, I mean, it's not like this character's any far off too, right? Has the SP boost, Friendly plus 2, does want 100% more damage to enemies inflicted with Lacerate and also Drain, which is very likely going to inflict with his strong attacks. Lacerate will stop the enemies from using their strong attacks. You'll heal yourself back up to full stamina. You're immune to every status element. You have a very powerful Soul Bomb, and then his Soul Bomb also does apply weakened defense. So when you do use that, there's a good chance you're going to clear that particular boss very, very quick. Other than White, your next best characters to bring here probably will be Arpuk Ichigo, maybe even this Okura, and even Safui Kenpachi. They're kind of like in a tier below when it comes to Guild Quest content because they are, you know, their damage output nearly isn't as high as the 3 characters we just talked about. But they have been in the game for longer. You might be able to have them duped out. Definitely worth using if you have no other better options, and you can definitely make them work too. Now, when it comes to your sides, normal attack dealing characters, if we actually just sort by, or more so filter with the flurry skill, we can see are NAD characters. And as you can see here, there's almost 2 lines of characters worth bringing here. In fact, I would actually say every character you see here is someone that you can bring for this particular guild quest. Maybe not the bottom 3. Maybe not the bottom 3. So I kind of forgot that I sorted by flurry. So Halibo, White Zangetsu, and even that movie character's name that I kind of forgot about, I believe it's Ganryu. They are still worth bringing because they do have flurry. Of course, their damage output will be lower than the ones above them on the above row, but they are still worth bringing. They're an option. And definitely an option you should consider using if you have no other better options. With the entire top row, characters that have been at the game for a long time, most of them premium, are definitely characters worth bringing. Now, Uetsu is someone that I was really looking forward to with his resurrection, really hoping he would pick up the booster skill, but in this case, he didn't, and that's unfortunate. I don't think his resurrection was as good as it could have been. My apologies, by the way, if you can hear the fireworks in the back, but going back to Uetsu, he is now immune to weakening, which is the stat that you want to be immune to in this guild quest, and he got a higher damage output, and yet now has an 80% bruiser with Flurry +1, and he is going to be your team booster with a decent crowd control effect in that SA2, since it does have a self-surrounding vortex for a few seconds. So Uetsu, despite not me being super happy with his resurrection, he's still a really good boost character to bring, probably the best for this particular week. Of course, Grimjaw's also going to be a really good NAD character. Yoruichi works as a team booster, can potentially paralyze. Arena Kenpachi, also a good NAD character. Chad, also once more another good NAD character. Your probably best NAD character in terms of dealing damage is going to be this character. He has a very, very high damage output and gets even more damage once more in this particular guild quest. He also has a 50% chance to dodge swiper enemies' attacks, so he has more survivability. He's immune to weakening. No stat augment, which isn't a bad thing since it doesn't hurt you if you want to inflict a certain stat augment on your main character. Let's say Yacha, you want to apply weakening. Toshiro, you want to apply freeze. White, you want to apply lacerate and drain. This character, since he can't inflict any, won't really ruin your run in case he accidentally inflicts something you don't want to inflict. So Byakuya can be really good here. Also does have a good crowd control SA2, since it does surround him with a vortex. Same can be basically said for Chad, although Byakuya I would say is better. And even Ishin to a certain extent, despite him being a way better character, can also work quite well in this game mode since he does have Fly +2 and also a 50% bruiser. So right now, I guess I would say your best team is probably going to be Yacha Unohana as a main. Maybe throw in Byakuya in there. And then again, once more, maybe instead of bringing someone like Uetsu who can do damage, having the extra security with a barrier and also boost might be something you want to do. Once more, you could bring Maid Orihime. Or at the same time, you can just bring any midi character that does have a barrier and also boost SA2. One that comes to mind right now is New Year's Renji. He doesn't have killer, but he's there for the boost and also the barrier to keep your teammates safe. Genyachu can be replaced with Toshiro, White, even Arpuk Ichigo. Byakuya can be replaced with any other NAD character. The more dupes, the better. There's plenty of options that you can go with here. And then your team booster can be Uetsu, or it can just be anyone with a boost and also barrier attack. But with that said, lads, that was the video for today. A quick preparation guide for the upcoming guild quest. Again, Melee, Squad 0, and Human should be relatively easy if you have been playing the game for some time, since you do have access to the free-to-play Tatsuki, which you can easily work on, and definitely worth working on for the idea of just using it in this guild quest. I've done it myself. I don't regret it. And then Phase 2, Melee Sniper, one of the more easy weeks out there, since we just have access to really good melee sniper killers, especially Yacha Unohana. If you have her, you can pretty much probably solo it with just her at 1 out of 5. But hope you lads did enjoy the video. I will be live tomorrow when the guild quest does go live at 3 PM my time in the UK. Hope to see you lads there, and I'll see you lads next time. Take care and peace.